Dylan Phelps. I'm a family guy. I mean, at heart, that's who I am. I have three girls and my incredible wife who I support solely, and I'm a W-2 guy. So I've been a W-2 guy my entire career, and been a guy who likes to trade in the stock market as a value trader a little bit. But ultimately, what we were looking for, and I say we, that's my wife and myself, is an opportunity to use the funds that we've saved over our careers, which is 15, 20 years now almost. I don't want to give away my age, but uh, use it to be able to create some income for us. And we're getting to that point where we had enough to where we felt like that could actually occur. And so we went on about a year-long journey looking for the opportunity to do two things. We wanted to create income and we wanted to build capital. And so most of the things that we found out there could do one or the other. A lot of people are promising the opportunity to build capital through real estate, through all types of investments. If you look out there, you'll find opportunities for that. But in my quest, I was really uncomfortable with just giving my large lump sum over to somebody to handle for me. Of course, they were saying, two times over 5 years and those types of numbers that you hear quite often, but I completely lost control in those cases. And also what I was worried about is not having that money when I needed it. And so to me, the income plus the capital was the way to go. So found a lot of opportunities to go through with income as well. And ultimately, those didn't look as good to me because it was a situation where, I'll give you an example of one I found. You buy an ATM machine and you allow it to pay you out over a certain number of years.
Right.
Works great if you can budget it, right? But for me, I was thinking, okay, I want to get paid out over a number of years and then still have my capital at the end. I don't necessarily want to budget my capital along the way. So honestly, when you guys called, Mark, Brooks called me up and he said, hey, this is what we do. Ultimately, we do both. We allow you to generate enough money to be able to generate income and build capital at the same time. And thankfully, I'd heard of the concept before. I just didn't know how to apply it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have had a very long conversation with Brooks because I had a lot of people calling me at the time, which is a good thing. But Brooks is the one that really caught my ear because what he was explaining, the cash flow machine, was exactly what we were looking for. And so ultimately, I'm a rule follower. And Brooks said, there can be some guardrails here that have been created by Mark. And these guardrails are going to keep your money safe while you're generating income to support your family along the way. And, all of the good bells and whistles were going off and saying, this is exactly what I want to learn more about. So that's why we moved forward and said, yes, we want to learn more about this concept and about the system.
So if I hear you correctly, I mean, there were a lot of opportunities for you to put money into quote unquote passive income, right? And what I always tell people is that you have to watch the word passive income because it's kind of thrown around. I mean, even though I consider this a pretty passive income program, and I think the way you're doing it is very passive income, there's still a little bit of work that you got to do, right? Like there's some screens that you got to watch and it's exciting. And it's not, lay back and, let the checks hit the mailbox while you're sleeping. There's a little bit of something you got to do. But to me, it's pretty darn close to passive income, right?
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
To me, it's the right amount of passivity because I like to be involved. If it was completely passive, I would constantly be wondering what's going on with my money. Where are they investing in now? Am I losing? Am I winning? Those types of things. But in this system, you see those things day to day. If you want to watch it daily or week to week, if you want to watch it weekly, even month to month, if you want to watch it monthly. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And so, you've got a family and you were looking for something that not only makes income, but something that builds capital.
Exactly.
And at the same time, I know you've done the numbers, so I kind of know what you're going to think. But if you can just stay conservative, right? And in our system, conservative is not what other people consider conservative. In our system, I believe that you can make 1% a week. So if you could stay conservative when you do the numbers and extrapolate them out for years, even if it's just 5 years, let alone 20 years, the numbers are kind of crazy, right?
They're staggering. I was actually talking to a couple of my friends this weekend. We were camping with a couple of groups of friends that we had from a past life down in Chattanooga, and I was telling them about what we're doing. And I actually posed a question that I posed to the group not too long ago, and that was, guys, if you just started out with $300,000, I'm not belittling that amount, it's a lot of money, but if you started out with $300,000 and you average about 1% growth per week, and don't even use the compound interest week over week or day over day, just use the annual compound interest. And we'll just, for easy math, just say that you gain 50% every single year and then compound that annually. I said, what's the number? What do you think over 20 years that you would actually have? And the reason I use 20 years is because I'm 40. My wife is actually younger, but we're thinking about retirement age that, that the world tells us is around 60, right? So one guy actually said it. I mean, immediately he said, "That's $1 billion." And I said, "That's exactly what it is. That's $1 billion." And like you said, in our system, that's conservative. And that's what I'm running with. I'm running with that 1.5% a week, and it's working out perfectly.
Yeah. And a lot of people, the system teaches you enough to be dangerous. And that's why we have lots of rules around it. As soon as you learn the sell side of options, which is where we make our 1% to 2% a week, then you start to realize there are weeks that you wish you would have been on the other side of it. And so yes. What do we tell those people?
Well, FOMO is something that we're going to have to be able to swallow along with whatever we're drinking, because that's not that big of a deal. And I was actually thinking about this today because I was looking at my specific account, and I trade Netflix. And so I was thinking, if I would have taken the money I had and bought as many underlying stocks of Netflix as I could have in the beginning, which was my first purchase was March 10th. So we're talking about a month and 10 days ago. If I would have done that and extrapolated it out to this morning before it fell, I would have been better off. But this is the thing. I would have had no plan B. I would have had no fail safe. There wasn't a net underneath my tightrope, right? It was what we're doing. I was pretty dang close to where I would have been if I had just bought the underlying and wrote it up like a value trader. But I constantly had the ability to mitigate any kind of losses that we were facing on a daily, weekly basis. And I was actually thinking about it, this morning, probably about 3 or 4 hours ago. And I was thinking, what allows me to sleep at night? The fact that I could have made about 20 grand more over this past 5 or 6 weeks, or the fact that I knew that I would not lose and I was still making money regularly. And it's the second, it's the latter, right? So that makes me very comfortable and very happy that I chose cash flow machine over value trading.
Cool. I mean, that's what Warren Buffett says. Like, I've studied a lot of traders over my years, and almost every single one of them says, keep your losses small and let your winners run big.
Right.
We don't quite do that in the cash flow machine. I really try to focus on protection and keeping your losses small. And then the winners run big is a cumulative effect by just trying to make that 1% a week. And so, we let the gamblers pay us to take risk, right? We're like the house, and we let the gamblers pay us for the ability to sell us their stock. And so I think that's the way to play it, right? I'd rather be the house than the gambler any day, unless you're just looking to have a bunch of fun. And then that's not what the system is about.
Yeah.
So let's get a little bit granular if we could. Like, you started, I think you invested on March 10th, a couple $100,000, right?
Originally, I think it's about 150 to start with.
About 150, and if you could give me roughly, like, what's your account worth? Like, if you had to sell everything and go right now.
Well, I put a lot more in after I realized that what you were telling me was actually true, right? So not that I didn't trust you, I just had to prove it to myself.
Right.
So right now I've got about $500,000 invested in Netflix. My account is worth around $880 right now. So percentage-wise, I did the math yesterday because I was just interested in myself. I'm up about 7% from the entirety of the investments that have been made so far in about 5.5 weeks.
That's awesome. 7.5. Some people are happy with 7.5% a year.
Yeah.
And you've not knocked that out in 5.5, 6 weeks. That's cool.
Yep.
So why would you recommend this to somebody that might be on the fence? Or let's just say, would you recommend it to somebody that might be on the fence that has those requirements that you guys have, or maybe you and your family have?
Yeah, so this is the funniest part of it. I've been trying to sell it to everybody that I know and love since I realized it actually works, right? And people are really reluctant, and I understand why. And you told me one of the, I think a couple of weeks ago, welcome to my world, because they don't believe that it's possible. They don't believe that you can go in and be conservative as a trader and still make these types of numbers. And I understand, because Mark, if you'd have called me up and said, Dylan, 50%. We're going to make 50% this year, I'd have been like, Mark, you're great, buddy. See you later. But you told me 20%, and then you made me prove it to myself that 50% is actually very, very possible. So yes, I would definitely suggest it. And I'm so thankful that I got on the phone with one of our other group members and he walked me through the process from his perspective. And I would love to do that for anybody who is a prospective member of our group, because I'm the guy who was skeptical, right? I'm the guy who's been trying to earn 10 or 12% every single year for the past 20 years. And now, I can be comfortable with having my hands on the system, my dollars, and we're making much, much greater returns than that.
So you've gotten to experience just 6 weeks in the program, and you've had some pretty good, let's call it luck, but I think luck favors the people that are prepared, right? Yeah. And so, you've chosen Netflix, and Netflix has gone up for sure, like we can admit. What do you think is the difference between you and maybe some of the other people that you've known over the last several years that in their investments?
So, the difference is exactly what you teach. Stop trying to hit the home runs. I mean, we're always out there as my past life, the value investor, looking for that next great stock that's going to gap up overnight and make us, $100,000 overnight. Hall of Famers hit singles. Hall of Famers had the best batting average. And all I literally want to do is hit a single every single week, because I know if I do that, one, I'm going to sleep, and two, I'm going to make money. And so ultimately, that's my game. If I look on my opportunities for my options trades, I run the numbers. If it's about 1 to 1.5%, I feel very comfortable there. Specifically, as a dollar amount is what I'm looking for. But I don't try to go very much higher over that. I mean, it's a rare occasion where I would feel comfortable going higher than that, because I go deep in the money because I want to make money every single week. I want to protect my capital and make sure that I see a certain amount of gains every single week. And that's really what's happened here. I picked, I think, from what most of us would consider a pretty conservative stock to begin with. I ran some numbers to do that based on how many of the underlying positions I could purchase. And then from there, how well the juice is paying every single week. And I said, you know what? The first thing I'm going to have to do is tame my greed and not allow myself to get greedy, especially while I'm learning the system. And so I intentionally, and because you advised that I do so as well, said Netflix is for me. I love what Tesla's doing. That was one of the things that we were looking at as well. But Netflix is going to keep me tame while I learn this system and allow me to make money on the way. So I picked the conservative stock. And then because of your advice and because of what you teach in the system, I consistently remain conservative on the options that I sell each week.
I'm so happy you're doing it, because it's hard to keep people on the guardrails, right? Within the guardrails, it's hard
to stay on it. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I'm a rule follower, but nonetheless, when you see all this money that people are throwing around out there, and it's an incredible amount, specifically when you talk about a Tesla-like stock, when you can see juice at $40 a share, that's like, wow, why am I hanging around in Netflix? But then week over week, you kind of see why you're hanging around in Netflix, because Netflix is on a steady trend. And for me, and this is just because of my personality, Tesla would give me a heart attack because of the way that it moves up and down so much.
Yeah. Now, there's some cost to joining our program. So for those people that are just getting acclimated to what we do or just hearing about it for the first time, what we do is we have a course, and we also have a mastermind and mentorship program around the course. Maybe you can just tell us what you thought about the course. Hopefully you thought it was good. And then you can tell us about kind of the benefits of the mastermind program and what you like about it.
Yeah, there is a cost. And obviously the cost of the course is much reduced compared to the cost of the mastermind group. And I wondered about that before I made that payment, right? Because we're talking about a significant amount of dollars for most of us, right?
That's all it costs for a lot of people, anybody.
Yeah, right. And so I'm thinking, okay, I can pay X for the course, or I can pay X for the mastermind, and which one would be better for me? Ultimately, for me, I needed people around me, and specifically you as our mentor, to be able to teach me this, not just from a book standpoint, because I'm a nerd. So from a book standpoint, I'm perfectly fine. But you say often, and I agree with this, options trading is not necessarily intuitive. And so even if you can make it bounce off the books, which I agree, the course is fantastic, and it teaches us the fundamentals of the system extremely well. I really appreciate that. But to be able to put that in kind of a hyper mode, that's what we do in the mastermind. And so that's you staying in touch with us on a regular basis. That's us meeting at least weekly on Fridays and bouncing our ideas and our experiences off one another. And so it's really taking that information that is in the modules that, again, is fantastic, and making it come to life. And so for me, I've made a couple of mistakes, but being in the mastermind has helped me to to negate a lot more mistakes. I guarantee you I would have made if I wasn't learning from everybody around me, and specifically you, and having your advice every single week.
So what do you think, what would you tell somebody that's, on the fence and maybe, considering the high cost of getting into this? What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, what we always believe, and is it an investment or is it not an investment? It is definitely an investment. I wish I had the date right, but I believe I made that investment back in about 2.5 weeks. It wasn't quite 3 weeks for sure, but I had that money back in my account in about 2.5 weeks. So to me, it's a no-brainer looking back. And I know, the hindsight is 2020 deal is 100% accurate. And I also understand, because I'm trying to promote this to my friends and the people who I really love, because it's worked out extremely well for us, that it's a barrier at the same time. But what you have to think of is this, and this is what really it came down to for me, because I had a financial analyst working for my family before I switched over to the cash flow machine. And it's, how much am I paying that financial analyst on a regular basis? And how much is that going to cost me over a 5 and 10 year period? And that was super easy math, because I was paying the guy 10 grand a year, right? And looking at the returns, it wasn't coming back nearly as fast as I thought it should, right? So, 10 grand a year versus what it costs for the cash flow machine, it wasn't that far apart. I had the control of my money. I was making the decisions based on what I was learning through not only the modules, but through the group and you, Mark. And it just made complete sense to me that over a year's time, I'm paying, a similar amount of dollars, and definitely over 2 years' time, I'm actually making money back over, what my investments were in the financial analyst versus what I'm investing in the cash flow machine mastermind. And, it ended up being a situation where it was probably, I'm going to say probably now, but probably a year from now, I'm going to say it's definitely the greatest investment I've ever made from a financial standpoint.
Wow. That's
really no doubt about it.
Really
no doubt about it.
So I have a saying that you just reminded me, and I say this all the time: never give up your power in your health, your wealth, or your time. And,
yes.
A lot of people have given their money over to a broker. Look, I'm busy. I'm making my money. I don't have time to learn this. But if you don't learn about money, because we deal with it every single day, like that's the one thing that we're not taught in school. If you don't learn about money, then you really don't have control over your money. And if you don't have control over your money, somebody else has control over the most important thing that you deal with on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And so I don't have any problem with financial planners. The only problem I have is most financial planners are trained in selling. They're not trained in portfolio management. They're not trained. They listen to their research firm or their back office tell them what stocks to buy and sell, and they don't have a plan. And so a lot of people get jaded with that, or they're just happy making 6 to 8%. And I believe there's so much more, right? There's so much more possibility that you can make. So I'm glad and this was a big thing for me, is that you put trust in me, you put trust in the system, and you continue to put money behind your trust, which makes such a huge difference. And now I think you're seeing the results. So I'm really proud of what you're doing and the way you're sticking to the rules. And I just wish every single person would do it. And you're doing it by not trying to kill it. Like, we're in Netflix. I'm in Netflix with you. And we have numbers tomorrow. And you just said, like music to my ears, you said, I'm thinking about jumping out of it. Well, sure. If you want to take the risk out of investing, you jump out on those 4 days a year where they report numbers. You can still be in the other 216 days or whatever it is. But to be out of that is just responsible, because if you take your chips off the table, just to go back to that gambling analogy, if you lose your chips, you never can go back to that table and play. So you can take your chips off the table, then you can always go back and sit down, And so that's really great. So I'm really happy that you have a dedication to the downside, protecting that downside, because when you protect the downside, the upside comes automatically.
And you don't have to make up so much ground getting back up to that upside. I think that's what I used to do as a value trader. Oh, it goes down, that's fine, but it'll come back up. And that hope a lot of times lost me a lot of money. And so, today specifically, when we're looking at numbers coming in and knowing that my total amount of money that I have in my fund is I'm happy with it, and I can pull it out like you said, and then jump back in, 3 or 4 days when things kind of level out. I'm really comfortable with that. So that versus potentially taking a ride, I think to me that makes a lot of sense.
Do you have any final closing thoughts on what you would tell somebody, or just thoughts in general about what we're doing?
Let's go back to the investment that we're asked to make in the cash flow machine mastermind, if you don't mind. my boss is a guy that, we have such great mutual trust, and we are very similar, specifically in the financial area. He's much smarter than I am. He's the CFO. I'm the chief wellness officer, so I'm the health and wellness guy. He's actually the money man, right? So I was telling him about our system because, again, for him, it become a lot more naturally than it would for me. And as I was telling him, just to give you an example, he was actually finishing my sentences because he's a lot smarter than I am. So anyway, I'm telling him this, and he said, what was the investment amount? And I told him, and he said, man, that really resonates with me. I said, why do you say that? He said, because I know how you guard your finances. And I said, yeah, I'm very guarded when it comes to my finances. We've worked too hard to allow it to slip away. He said, and the fact that you made an investment like that in a course like this, and you're telling me that it really works, he said, that is something that really resonates with me, because ultimately, I know you would not have made that investment if you didn't believe in it wholeheartedly. And I said, yeah, and thank the Lord that, my belief in Mark and the system actually came to fruition, right? Because I made that money back by the time I was telling him about it, which was fantastic.
That's it.
I'll end with this, and it's because Ian, who I was talking about earlier, ended my conversation with him like this. I asked him, I said, Ian, is there any reason, and we had about an hour and a half long conversation, but is there any reason with what you know about me why you would tell me not to make this leap, why you would tell me not to jump into the cash flow machine? And he was very thoughtful about his response, because he waited probably about 11 seconds, because that's the very uncomfortable amount of time that you can wait without hanging up the phone, right? And so he did that, and I'm hanging on, because I knew what he was doing. He was thinking. And he came back and he said, honestly, I cannot think of one reason why I would tell you not to jump into the cash flow machine, because ultimately everything that you're looking for, specifically those two high points, the ability to generate income and increase your capital, is going to be there for you when you jump in. And so that's really what I would leave anybody who is rewatching this back and trying to understand more about the cash flow machine is, I'm in it now with the training and the investment part of it, a little bit over 2 months. And I cannot give anybody one reason why they should not be able to be successful in this if they are trying to generate capital and income at the same time.